Good afternoon. Good to be back on, getting back into the book of Matthew. Before we get into the meat of today's Bible study, just some housekeeping items. A reminder that I'm going to be heading on vacation starting this Friday and won't be getting back until the first week of August. So there's not going to be a Bible study next week, and there's not going to be a Bible study on the 1st of August. I think that's the Wednesday. So, because I will be in the midst of recuperating from a very long drive. So please forgive me. Also, with some changes that are going to be happening around the place, we're going to be switching what web service we're using. To find something that's a little bit more cost-effective. So be watching announcements and whatnot as we post where our new online meeting location is going to be. For folks who are showing up here, that's not going to affect you much because, well, you're here and you don't need the online stuff. But as far as the meeting software, we're going to be changing services here just to find something that's not quite so expensive but still fits our needs. So just keep your eyes open, and we're going to keep this going, and we're going to keep this running. All right. So we're picking up in the middle of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus has been laying down the law. He's been telling folks, the things that you understood, they are not always right. Many times they set the bar too low. Jesus is still doing that. He's still teaching from his position of great authority. He is teaching as the one who gives the word, not just one who interprets the word as the rabbis have been doing. So here we go. We're getting into it. We're continuing on. We've gone through divorce, we've gone through adultery, we've gone through murder, we've gone through anger, and now we're going to get into oath, a thing that even today is misunderstood. Now, here we go. Matthew 5, verses 33 through 37. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say be simply yes or no, and anything more than this comes from evil. Okay. You gotta love Jesus' sense of humor. You can't. You don't swear an oath by your head because you can't make one hair white or black. Duh! Everybody knows that comes from kids, right? They're the ones who make your hair white. It's supposed to be a joke. So, but anyhow, okay. So Jesus is taking on the habit of giving oaths. Now, it helps to understand that the context that Jesus is speaking in is the context where there's a ranking of oaths. Some oaths were more binding than others. And this happens all the time. For any of you who are familiar with pop culture, you probably caught the reference to The Princess Bride with the title for the slide. No good. I've known so many Spaniards. With the scene, you've got one guy dangling off a cliff, another guy offering to help, but the guy who's offering to help is waiting to kill the guy who's climbing up the cliff. You see their problem. And so the guy trying to help starts offering all of the lines. He rejects the guy as sworn as a Spaniard that he would bring the guy up alive, and of course, no, too many Spaniards. Too many Spaniards have broken their oath. So I mean, it's these kinds of things. It's like the idea today in the court of law that placing your hand on a holy book and then raising your right hand and pledging to tell the truth and nothing but the truth is more acceptable than just saying, this is what I saw, judge or jury, whatever. Yes, my knowledge of courtroom dynamics comes completely from law and order and not from actually sitting in a courtroom. So far to date, I haven't had to be on a jury. But what happens today isn't new. It was happening back then. And so people were giving all these oaths, and they were swearing by certain things, like the grave of their great-grandmother, or by the altar in the temple, and all these things. And the different oaths were considered more binding than another. Jesus is addressing that. He makes this obvious when he says, don't swear by the throne in heaven. Don't swear by the altar. Don't swear by the earth. Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. Speak truthfully. And the reason he says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, is because the whole idea of ranked oath comes from evil. It comes from our desire to weasel out of our oath, to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room so that we can say we kept the oath, we didn't really break it, or, well, that oath wasn't really binding. We're fallen people. We don't like being bound to having to do something. So, if we're going to bind ourselves by an oath by choice, we're going to bind ourselves by an oath we can break and still feel good about ourselves. Despite the fact we're out and out lying. So Jesus is saying, just be truthful. Don't get into this habit that allows you to weasel out of everything that you want to weasel out of. Just speak the truth. Live by that whole 8th commandment thing. You shall not bear false witness about your neighbor. Tell the truth. I mean, seriously. And so, but what this isn't, it isn't an admonition to never swear an oath. It is an admonition, don't go into this ranking of oaths. So it's not wrong for us to take an oath. It is wrong to have this idea of ranked oath. It is wrong to think it is the oath that makes us truthful, and it is wrong to break an oath. And people were taking vows all the time. Vows, oaths, they're the same thing, okay? Evil, that is the ranking of oaths. So let your yes be yes and your no be no. Don't think that it is wrong to go and join the military and swear to defend the Constitution and the country from enemies within and without. Don't give in to the evil that creates the idea of a hierarchy. Be honest. I know it's hard. We don't want to be honest. We want to get out of things. We don't want to do what is good. We don't want to do what is right. Okay, enough on oath taking. Let's get into something a little bit more fun. Or we might think it's fun. Or you would think so by the number of soap operas that are on. Matthew 5:38 through 42. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other one also. And if anyone would sue you and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. Okay. In this fallen world, we have a mindset of seeking revenge. We, in fact, confuse justice with revenge. The idea of making sure I get mine is a revenge-driven mindset. And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again, and you're going to probably get sick of me saying it, but as much as we have changed, the more we've remained the same. We're not much different. They were seeking revenge. And Jesus comes out and he is basically saying that revenge is a dish that's never served. It just, that's the way it is. And it's sad that we haven't figured it out. We live in a world obsessed with revenge. The people around us are upset and if one was to judge by what you see on TV, you would think that was the only thing we were obsessed with sometimes, was seeking revenge to right a perceived wrong. Now, I do want to clarify that this is not speaking out against a government, the principalities, judges, and all that, from meting out punishment and redress legally speaking. Remember, the princes were given the sword so that they may punish the wrongdoer. There's a difference. What Jesus is talking about isn't so much that somebody has actually broken a law. What he is addressing is all the revenge sought for perceived insult or perceived wrong, not actual legality. See, our place is not to pursue justice. That's not our calling as average citizens. That is given to the government. We can abide as good law abiding. That's not where we're supposed to be at. We're not supposed to be seeking an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. In fact, the passages that go into that were being misapplied even at that time. The rabbis, very likely during the time of Jesus, were trying to justify the whole tit for tat idea, get even mentality, by taking the legal code that is found within the Old Testament. And I've got a couple of citations up on the screen that go into the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And in fact, Jesus is going on about, you've heard it said, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, is a quote of Exodus 21:24, where it says that. But if you read the whole context, you don't even have to go that far, you get the immediate context of it saying that this is actually a limitation on the whole eye for an eye, tit for a tat, get even mentality. It is in fact addressing a specific legal situation and putting legal bounds on what can be done. It isn't saying that this has to be done. What it is saying is there are limitations as to what can be done. Because otherwise you have complete unrestrained get-evenness, and you've got the Hatfields and McCoys. And I still haven't seen the Hatfields and McCoys. I heard it was a great show. One of these days I'll see it myself. But really the whole storyline behind the Hatfield and McCoy is a great example of the whole unfettered, unbound revenge idea, where it went from beyond just a couple of people where something bad did happen, and instead of seeking justice, they sought revenge, and this whole thing blew up, and the two families were murdering each other. I mean, that is revenge. The government coming in and arresting somebody because they stole something or they murdered somebody, that is not revenge. That is not what Jesus is addressing here. Jesus is addressing the idea that if somebody comes up to you and insults your mother, maybe they say a really bad "your mama's so fat" joke, and the idea of responding to that insult by offering a duel. Yes, I know, I'm going completely anachronistic here. There haven't been many duels of late, so to speak, where you see two men grabbing their swords or their pistols and taking their 10 paces and being idiots. But we still do have a revenge mentality. We can see it playing out through litigations and things like that. In gangs, yeah, you can see it with the gangs. And the neighborhood near where we lived in a previous place, there was a gun battle because supposedly somebody had wronged another person's sister. So, yeah, revenge is still around. Just don't use the Bible to justify it, because the Bible speaks out against it. We are not called to right wrong through evil by perpetuating that evil. We are called to right wrong by just burying it under the good. Paul really helps in bringing this out. Wouldn't responding with an insult in return count as revenge? That would be the true eye for an eye response. Yes, responding insult for insult is, yes, revenge. Okay? Just because they insulted you doesn't mean that you're allowed to go and insult them. Okay? Just because so-and-so acts like a complete idiot and jerk doesn't give you like, yes, as I'm saying this, I am guilty of it myself. I need to repent of myself, and I do. So I'm not saying I'm perfect on this. It's one of those things I'm working on, but the reality is we are not supposed to be doing this kind of stuff. So we as Christians should not be responding to the insults of Christianity with more insult. I know it's hard. I know it's not pleasant. But if somebody is insulting your faith, you're not called to insult them right back or be mean to them. Instead, you're actually called to be merciful, to be nice to them. to turn that other cheek, not beat them up. We're not supposed to be going out there with those ticket signs, a la Westboro Baptist and their God Hates America signs. I'm not going to even go into their other more famous signs, but I'm not going to perpetuate their immoral responses. So we are, as Paul is saying in Romans 12:18 through 21, is overcome evil with good. In fact, why don't we go ahead and really quick jump out of Matthew and go to that passage in Romans. So, okay, so you've got the citation right there on your screen with where to go. So go ahead, open up that Bible of yours, or put it in your internet browser and do a search for it. I'm sure Bible Gateway will pop up the appropriate verses for you. So, okay, here we go. Romans chapter 12:18 through 21. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. You know, one of the hallmarks of the church has been this unceasing, unfailing doing of good in the face of evil. And to some extent, I think we need to relearn that. And so, but anyhow, I'm going to get into that in a little bit more here in a bit. So, really, when it comes down to us operating in this evil world where people are doing bad things to everybody, we're supposed to err on the side of being taken advantage of, not on the side of retaliation. And so, if somebody comes up and slaps you, yes, turn that other cheek. Don't give in to insult with another insult. And just don't do it. Now, at the same time, do not see this as a justification for complete pacifism. This isn't a prohibition of, say, serving in the military where you are called upon in that vocation to serve your fellow neighbors by protecting them. That's different. That is not the same thing. So this is a seeking revenge against insults against you, not performing a duty in service to your neighbor, particularly a legitimate service to your neighbor. And we have the context of Scripture that can help us with this portion where then to their people, it doesn't condemn them for being there for others. What it does condemn is the idea of responding eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It is one thing to defend your neighbor. It is another thing to actively seek to harm your neighbor because they maybe insulted you. That perceived insult, that whatever retribution may happen, that is not your place to seek, that is somebody else's. And Paul makes it pretty clear that's God. To an extent, God does give some of that responsibility to the government in that they are supposed to uphold the law and punish the evildoers. But for the individual, we're not supposed to be reacting against perceived influence. I can see where this can be something a lot to wrap your mind around, because in some ways it seems that I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. Part of what helps here is understanding the role of vocation. God has given specific vocations to specific people. And so a part of the vocation of being a government official, I'm just going to be very generally speaking here, is the implementation and upholding of law. The role of citizen is to actually to obey those laws. Our role as citizen is to vote. Our role as citizen is to be informed. Our role as citizen, and I'm speaking in an American context here, so please, if you're within a different context, understand there's going to be some differences. I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong. So, but government officials have their vocation, and it is not the same as the vocation of, say, an IT worker. There's different vocations, and they have their different places, because God uses them in different ways. And that's okay, that's a good thing. So, if you apply that idea of vocation, it does help with understanding where Jesus is going with this whole revenge thing. Speaking to the average citizen, your place isn't to seek revenge. Okay? So remember your vocation. Okay. It would, oh, I thought I had an extra slide. Apparently I did not have the extra slide. So, okay. Moving onward, or actually no. Wow, I need to pay attention to my time. We are out of time for today. So we will be picking up with Matthew 5. Oh, I take it. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it because we're going to be running out of time. So we'll pick up in a couple of weeks with Matthew 5:43 through 48. For those of you who tune in online, remember that we're going to be changing our service. With the whole economy thing, it behooves us to find a little less expensive option than WebEx. Like software, but it's expensive. So we are going to be switching. Pay attention, and new directions will be coming out soon. With that, everybody have a blessed week, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to be enjoying a much-needed vacation. So until then,